research from Mesoamerican sites that supports a new understanding of the field present in the structure of space and our relationship to it. Can you discuss this?
Well, from ancient artifacts all around the world as well, but certainly from the ones that we're studying right now, there is definitely traditions all around the world that discuss that the material world, our reality, is actually a function of a field, and that field has very specific mechanics, very specific geometry, very specific functions, the way it works, the mechanics of it, that makes up not only our reality, like all the things around us, but that makes us as well, because it's making the atoms that make us and the cells and so on. And eventually the information moving through, producing the event of consciousness. So there's a lot of depth across many different scales there. And it's great to be able to do this with Greg in this series, because we complete different pieces of this puzzle, and when you get those pieces together, all of a sudden you start to see the continuity between different sciences and different philosophies and different understandings, and you start to really understand the oneness of this whole new view, world view, universal view that is being developed right now.
Yeah, amazing. And the oneness, which of course humanities team so even 18 years ago, awakening the world of oneness, when people looked at us cross-eyed, not so much today, but what's beautiful about this masterclass are so many things. The science, though, is the basis for all of this that
Correct.
We're going to be talking about.
Because we're finally arriving in a place where science is starting to be able to identify the mechanics of that concept of oneness. It's one thing to say, it's all one. It's another thing to be able to demonstrate how that is the case and understand the mechanics of it, which is really important.
Yes. So let's jump to something related here. Your research concludes that the universe appears to be a holographic structure in which each point contains the whole.
Right.
What are the implications in this? What does that mean, just for people that?
Right. It might sound really esoteric, but actually, it's a function of a hologram, is that you can cut it and cut it and cut it, and each time you're gonna get all the information that was there, plus a resolution change, every time you cut it. But if you have a hologram of an apple and you hit it with a laser, you'll get an image of an apple appearing in the space. Well, if you cut that plate in half, you'll still get the apple, and if you cut it in a quarter, you can still get the apple, but it's going to get more and more fuzzy. What I've written in physics is basically this idea that you have different scales, and each one represents a certain level of coherency of the information, and basically you have screening across the scales that makes it so they have different energy levels, right? And the energy screening, the thermodynamics of this screening is actually what we see as mass, electromagnetic fields, and charge, and all this that makes up our reality. So that, it's one thing, right? But it is continuously, changing at different scales, and so that all of a sudden you get a sense that the system is interacting in such a way that at any point you could have the information of the whole. Now, when you write the equation, it happens to come out that way. That is, when you look at a proton, you can look at the function of that proton and mathematically get the temperature of the universe, the mass of the universe, the radius of the universe. You can get information about the universe because of the relationship of this one teeny proton to the rest of the universe, if you understand this scaling function and how things work. So it's holographic, meaning that at any point in the field, you can have the information of the whole. And that tells us that since we're made out of these protons, since we're made out of these atoms and that makes up the cells and so on, that in some ways we have a path to infinite amount of information, that we have a path to understanding the fundamental structure of the universe and so on, like that we can understand reality at its deepest level because clearly we're made of that same reality, and if we understand these mechanics, then we understand ourselves at a really deep level.
So a lot of times people will share that a drop of the ocean actually has all of the ocean in the drop. Is this analogous to what we're talking about here now?
Yeah, it's similar. It was in ancient philosophy and Buddhist thinking and many other different cultures. This idea of hologram, this idea of the small containing the big, and now we have a formalism that says, well, this is not just a nice thought. This is actually how things work, which is a big difference, meaning when it's a philosophy, it's wonderful, right? And it's a wonderful thought. It's difficult to integrate. How am I the chair? How am I, the tree over there? But when you sit under the lens of the mechanics of physics, and all of a sudden the math tells you how it's connected, how it's entangled, basically that you're part of this incredible network that connects all things, then it starts to make sense, right? It starts to make sense because everything is interdependent on everything else, and everything is related to each other in its evolution and so on. So all of a sudden you start to feel, oh yes, this concept of oneness and this concept of the small contains the whole, starts to sink in to you, and you start to realize, well, yeah, I'm 100 trillion cell, 50 to 100 trillion cell, right? Each cell is made of 100 trillion atoms, right? That's already a lot of information. It's a very complex system, right? It's 100 trillion multiplied by 100 trillion is a big number. And then you have each one of these atoms made of Planckian particles that are like billions and trillions of them for each proton. And so now you realize, wow, like the complexity of me is really, really high. And when you think of yourself, all of a sudden you think of yourself in a different way, Maybe you don't think of yourself anymore as just one thing, but you think of yourself as a composition of an incredible amount of information and energy. And this information moving through the scales produce thermodynamic effects. And that's why you burn at almost 100 Fahrenheit 24/7 for hopefully 100 years, right? And that is non-trivial. It's carnal engine. It's producing energy, and as you do things in the space, as you move, as you think, as you experience, as you feel emotions and all this, you're actually modifying, you're informing the space, you're informing the universe of your experience. And then the universe collective experiences feed you back more and more transformative experiences in which you adapt and interpret as well, and so on. And so you get this feedback between this oneness and you, which you're part of, and then you start to feel the impact you have and the importance of what you do and what you think and how you feel and so on. And now you get a sense of responsibility, and then that's a whole other story,
So the thing I jump to in the science is then when we talk about omniscience or omnipotence, the science, in a sense, is talking about how this could be true, isn't it? Because in my own life, sometimes the term is used, non-local intelligence, that I feel. I mean, where did this come from? I don't, I have no idea. Wasn't
Remote viewing, all these kind of things.
Right. So, and other things that are where time can't be true because it was things that happened that were out in the future, months or years. So this could partly explain this whole omniscience and even omnipotence, where we're actually garnering power from the one, if you will.
Yeah, actually, this is really important thing. It's I always say this is like esoteric experiences or spiritual experiences are based on mechanics understood yet, and this is what's really exciting now, is that we're starting to understand these mechanics, and all of a sudden it doesn't sound so voodoo that some students off the campus in some university on the West Coast or on the East Coast or somewhere where they're doing a studies as they did on remote viewing and found overwhelming evidence that even a non-trained person just plucked off the campus at Stanford, can get pulled into a room and asked to remote view a place in Russia and nail it, with some 80%, accuracy. Now, this was published in very respectable physics journal and so on. This was very respectable physicists making these measurements. And so, how is that possible? Well, it sounds voodoo, it sounds crazy, it sounds voodoo if you don't know that you're part of a field that's holographic, in which each point contains all the information. But if that's the case, if every point in space, if every atom you're made of contains singularity, and I could go on technically, but I'm not gonna want to bore you or the audience. You can definitely say that you have access to information that's non-local or based on time arrows in space, meaning that you can transcend, space and time, or at least time, and that you can be in non-local space and get the information from non-local space with senses that are beyond just the five senses that we utilize every day.
Yeah, amazing, astounding. So our partner in this program, we talked about, Greg Braden, shared that there are many potential applications for the new physics and biology, including in energy, space travel, medical, computers, healing of trauma, and so much more. Can you help us vision some of this, or understand what examples of this might be?
Oh, yeah, I mean, the implications of understanding the fundamental physics of this fundamental field have, very large implications in many fields, like from even temporal violation, as we were talking about, like meaning being able to predict things in times, and so on, which are not precluded from Einstein field equation neither, so people understand. But as well, energy production and gravity control and health and implications are remarkable, tremendous. We're talking about almost infinite amount of energy available in every point. We're talking about being able to control gravitational fields, just as we've built a whole civilization in the industrial era based on controlling electromagnetic field, which we succeeded in doing very well, and produced the civilization we have today, where we're transferring data over electromagnetic waves and we're using electricity and all this stuff. Well, now the next step for humanity is to control the gravitational field. This could not be possible because we didn't have a fundamental analytical solution to the gravitational constant, meaning we didn't understand gravity at its most fundamental level. Einstein told us that it was the curvature of space-time, but he didn't tell us what space-time was made of. And so now we're discovering that actually space-time is a fluctuation of the quantum field, like a plasma. It's a structure, and that structure, yes, when it curves, it produces gravity, which is what Einstein found. But that is a real structure. It does produce real effects we call gravity. So it's not just a conceptual thing. Now we're actually understanding the mechanics of this, and it's giving the right solution for the mass and for the electromagnetic field and for charge and all this. So all of a sudden we understand where these things come from, forces, and now we can even imagine that using this technology we could extract matter directly from space. That is, the replicator, that becomes possible. We're talking about opening the mouth of wormholes. We're talking about warp drive. We're talking about, very, very advanced technology can emerge from this. And I assure you that this is not, so French, meaning like there is a section at NASA, Sonny White works in it, Dr. Sonny White works in it, they've been trying to make a warp drive for multiple decades using quantum vacuum fluctuations. So this is not so far, it's just that now I've been able to solve the equations in the standard model of physics with no free parameters, all from first principles, describing these scales and these constants, and that gives us the roadmap for the development of those technologies.
So you're bringing in constants. So these cosmic constants is something that is one of the things central to your work. Can you just share a little bit about that?
Well, they're essential to physics, meaning, as we did physics over the ages, we've discovered that there is fundamental constants that the universe continuously uses, and that they represent certain things like electromagnetic forces, gravitational forces, quantum forces, and so on. The Rydberg constant, the G factor, the gravitational constant, many different constants, and they are not necessarily well related in the standard model because they were discovered at different times, and they were discovered with different formulas. They didn't really talk to each other well, and so on, and so, and the same with the forces, and so what this does is that it unifies them all, and all of a sudden, from the same principle, the same first principle, you can output all of the constants in physics, all of the scales, and all of the forces, and in some cases, multiple of these constants are measured with 13 degrees, 13-digit accuracy, right? So, 13 significant values after the period, and this theory nails them all, which is remarkable. If a theory in physics nails one of them, it's considered, an amazing achievement, and it's a theory that's taken very seriously from that moment on. In this case, it nails them all with very, very high level of accuracy, and it scales across the scale. So, all of a sudden, you get a full picture of, and as I was saying earlier with Greg, it's like a roadmap. It's like the user's guide to the universe. And when you have the user's guide, it's much easier to navigate. This is the case. I don't know if you're like me, but when I receive stuff, typically I try to put it together, and then eventually I revert back to the instruction. This is the case that we tried to put it together, and now finally we get the instructions, and it gets much easier.
Well, didn't Einstein go to his grave searching for this cosmic constant then?
searching for unification. Actually, he was writing physics the day he died, trying to solve this. Absolutely. I firmly believe that if Einstein had the tools we have today, he would have solved it a long time ago. But he didn't have the benefits of all the experiments that have been done since then, and all the observation that was done in cosmology and all this. For instance, his theory of general relativity predicted singularity, predicted black holes. In fact, the solution to Einstein's field equation is a black hole. That's the first thing that was done, that was found by Carl Schwarzschild, that solved Einstein's equation for Einstein, because Einstein didn't solve them. He just put the concept out. But Einstein had not the benefit of observation of black holes, so he thought that those were probably not necessarily real, and many others, had some reservation about a point of infinite density because the scaling concept was not there, fractals were not there. There was a bunch of things missing. If Einstein would have had those confirmation, I think Einstein would have put the pieces together, because people don't realize, but Einstein published papers at the time with Rosen, for instance, describing subatomic particles as mini singularities, and that were connected through wormholes. People don't realize it. This is so when I'm talking about singularity at the atomic level, people think it's a very far out idea that's very far from mainstream. But this is the father of some of the mainstream physics, most prevalent mainstream physics on the planet, that talked about singularities at the Planck scale or at the atomic level, and wormholes connecting them. The Einstein-Rosen bridges, which eventually became, very well documented in terms of physics, and certainly black holes did as well. So, it's kind of like all the pieces were there. I just put them together in the right order, just because they were discovered in kind of like historical order, which was not necessarily obvious to reconnect everything.
Yeah, well, I would say a lot of humility there. And say, well, if Einstein had the tools I had, whatever. I mean, astounded. Truly jaw-dropping. So I'm gonna now segue to something.
There could have been other physicists other than Einstein as well. There was plenty. Paul Dirac, many others, Max Planck, others. Bohr and so on. They were remarkable people, and they did what they could with what they had at the time. Which was already remarkable.
So this cosmic constants thing is something to celebrate. But these remarkable scientists that we're talking about, they didn't quite get there. Couldn't get into that end zone. And that's what your research is.
What's really remarkable, and as Greg talks about it, is that all that knowledge was known by the ancient civilization. That is, the philosophy of it was there. The concept that there's a field, they called it mana, prana, chi, all kinds of things. They talk about its geometry. They talked how it was generating singularity, and that everything was inside everything. I mean, the water drop in the ocean thing, and so all the concepts were there. We discovered the physics in patches, right? And now, the concept, the philosophy, the understanding, and the physics are coming together, and they go, oh, okay. No, it's not just a concept, it's really the way things work. And actually, when you write the math that way, it actually works, right? It comes out and it's beautiful. And unlike some of the standard model, equations, it doesn't require free parameters, which in quantum theory is 21, which doesn't make it wrong. It just means that, there was patchwork that had to be done because some of the pieces were missing. Now the pieces come in, and it's like a lotus that opens, and it's okay, that petal relates to this petal, because they're all connected to the same thing.
Yeah, truly scientific discoveries that really are changing everything. Oh my God. I mean, if as we review these things, I think anybody, on a layman level, and I'm a layman myself, I'm not a scientist, but you just look at these things, understand these things that you're talking about, and it's extraordinary. I'm going to segue over to something else that's extraordinary. So Greg Bay, who's our partner in this program, he shared a conversation of evidence that human progress and evolution have been directly affected by extraterrestrial intervention. And this is truly spectacular. So what do you want to just share a little bit about that and the implications? And what does that mean?
Right. Well, in light of all the recent disclosures of the Pentagon about modern encounters, with objects flying in our space that are not, behaving as we would expect from conventional physics and from conventional technology, there is, the beautiful thing about Greg and I and many others is that we have a thirst for truth, and that's true as well for many scientists, even like in the mainstream and so on. They might have more constraints because they're inside the institutions and so on, but the search for the truth doesn't permit you to prejudge a phenomenon without, data and studying it and staying open about what the outcome of conclusions you're going to come to, right? And both, Greg and I were on that path when we met 30 years ago in a small restaurant in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and discussed all these things. And since then, we were looking at physics, we were looking at biology, we were looking at consciousness, we were looking at ancient civilization, and artifacts, temples around the world. And we did independent studies in many different ways, and as well some collaborations and so on. And we came to similar conclusions, as did many other researchers that did the work, and that didn't discard these things offhand because it was not necessarily acceptable and so on. And that was the opportunity we had from not being inside, institutions where we had to worry about what our colleagues and, peers would say. And so we just went for the truth. And what we found is that there's a lot of evidence that there was early contact in our civilization on our planet that may even predate modern history and even goes beyond this latest cycle since the last ice age and so on. And if it was one piece, if it was one temple in the world or one thing over here or maybe a few things around the world, it'd be one thing, right? But we're talking about thousands and thousands of anomalies, right? And these anomalies are non-trivial. And I'm not talking about, an archaeologist going to a site and saying, well, since I can't imagine anything else, I'm just going to say that it's a bunch of slaves that pulled on this 1,000-ton log for 400 miles in the middle of the desert across a mountain range and a river and stuck it there and then carved it exactly right as if it had a CNC or computer-controlled machine cutting it, right? Because the symmetry is insane and all this stuff. Like, no, you can't know that maybe in the 1800s it was acceptable to say this and because at the time was the only thing they could think of. But now that we know, what it takes to do this, and we study these things and all this, it's like, no, that's not happening that way. So something different happened. And so we're just following the data. And when you follow the data, both of us came to the conclusion, with many others, as I was saying, that there was not the linear evolution on our planet from cavemen to modern men that lead us information is re-emerging because imagine it's like a civilization that would find ancient artifacts, right, temples and stuff. Early on would find the ones that are the most obvious, and then as they went along, they would find the ones that are older and older because they'd be deeper and deeper or harder to find, in the jungle and so on. And we're finding this. So in this course, we're discussing this, and we're discussing it freely, and it gets easier for us to discuss it now that there's been, disclosure and it's being more accepted. That there is a phenomenon that is occurring even today, right?
Absolutely. And so, as we talk about today, you just released here, I think it was in October, November, you released some research that is astounding in what it's peer reviewed and what it is sharing. Is there anything we touched on some of the things that are part of your research, but are there any other things in your research that you want to share relating to this?
Clearly, there is more work to be done theoretically and in terms of technological development, but clearly as well, it is solid enough what we publish to engender a whole new direction in the exploration of physics, which has been in a slump. It's called the crisis in physics, where there's not been much innovation in a long time, and discoveries are occurring in observation, for instance, in cosmology and in the quantum world that's requiring that a new set of understanding emerging. And I think this is really a first step into stepping into that new paradigm, stepping into that new worldview of reality that has to do with a much deeper understanding of the world around us, but as well of us, and biology, which, people don't realize that current physical theory, physics, does not include living things. It doesn't include you and I, right? It's just the material world. Because there's nothing in those theoretical models that allows for, atoms to all of a sudden get together, 100 trillion of them, and make a cell. This one cell is too complex. Under random function, it would take too long since the beginning of the Big Bang would not be long enough. It would need billions and billions and billions of years more in order for even the probability, which is very slight, that all these atoms would make a cell. And then that's how by chance be made, and then there was a little lava that flowed over and then killed it. Now it would take another, billions and billions of years before it didn't have the chance to do it again. This is not possible, right? So in physical theory, there's no equation, there's no understanding how biology can work. In these new equations, all of a sudden, coherent behaviors are expected from the theory, from the math. You expect that things would start to self-organize. You expect that they would eventually make biological structures and that they would, evolve to certain levels of complexity. And you even expect from these theories that eventually there would be enough information flow through the system, enough feedback through the system, that the system that it built itself on, the feedback that built the system, would have a feedback of consciousness that it would become self-aware. And so you can not only account for the material world and the biology, but you can as well account or start to account, to what consciousness actually is, and what is the energy level of consciousness. And when you do that, you realize that actually that piece is the flow of creation. That is the fundamental, energy that runs the whole thing. Basically, the universe is learning about itself, and you're the one doing the learning for it.
amazing. So, so why are scientists and the media not shouting from rooftops about these this research? Is this like Galileo's time, or at least he brings forward the truth, and everybody says, well, this isn't very inconvenient, Galileo. Right? Because it's the same thing repeating itself here.
Well, there's resistance to changes. It's normal, when you have a whole institution that has been thinking a certain way and training has been done in a certain way and all this. It's normal that it takes time to change these fundamental thoughts. So, and you may say, well, you've been at it for 30 years, how long more is it going to take? Well, we're filming this before the release of the paper, so, I'm going to say that, we're really, really close now because the mainstream scientific institutions are changing very rapidly. And partly as a result of what happened in the last 2 years, a year and a half with COVID and everything, it has broken things up, enough that people are really considering what's important and what do I really want to contribute to this planet. And maybe it's not all about, getting the biggest house and getting the nicest cars and all this, but I want to contribute. I really want to look for the truth. And many scientists are already naturally like that. That's why they became scientists. It's just that the institution is starting to open up a little more. And I think there's an opportunity there, and I think it's still gonna be a path to get there, but I think the path is very, very short now, and this new views will, eventually become the standard view.
Yeah, I'd call that a pretty humble response too.
Well,
Thanks for your humility here in this.
Well, and you can consider, for instance, that, in 2012, one of my papers, the holographic mass solution paper, predicted the radius of the photon to be 4% smaller than what the standard model was predicting at the time and what they were measuring. And unbeknown to me at the time, they were, doing experiments in accelerators in Switzerland to try to measure the radius of the photon more precisely. And I published in 2012, and in 2013 they published their result, and it turned out to be 4% smaller. Now that was contested at the time because 4% in quantum theory is like another universe, right? Like quantum theory is written typically with accuracy of 10-digit accuracy, and so to have something like the unity of the atom, the center of the atom, to be 4% different than what they had in their model is like, oh my God. And so it was contested initially. The biggest complaint is that the measurement was done with muons, which are heavy electrons. They were saying maybe it's flexing the surface of the proton a little bit when it's colliding with them, and that's going to get the right value, and so on. And eventually they were able to reproduce the experiment with electrons, and as they did, they did measurements that were more accurate than before, and they got the same value again. And in 2018, CODATA, which is the standard for all values in physics, adopted the new radius, the radius I predicted, for the radius of the proton. So those kind of things are things that makes theory, that confirms a theory and experimentally, and in such a way that that theory eventually becomes the mainstream. So, in comparison, string theory, many decades of investigation and billions of dollars of investment has not been able to do one prediction or produce anything that can be built in a laboratory to confirm it. So, these things are important, and these things are the things that eventually makes the standard, views accept, alternative views, and transcend the old model.
Yeah, like you said at the beginning, it's time for out with the old and in with the new.
Correct.
pace of physics has been stagnant for a while, or it has been longer now.
Right. Well, now there's a there's a door that opens. There's a window that opens, and all of a sudden we have a whole universe that really like I said, it's like a flower, but it has infinite petals. Like you can now the exploration has a whole new avenue to go to, and I can't even imagine where it's gonna go and how deep it's gonna go and how remarkable it's gonna get. So far, it's made me cry. It's made the physicists that I showed these equations to cry, and they were tears of joy. And I think that it has a really deep impact on our consciousness as well, because we recognize ourselves in this understanding. We recognize our true nature, and as we do, we transform our relationship to ourselves and to the material world. Like some people talk about loving themselves, and I was talking with Greg about that. Is that, well, in order to love yourself, you have to know what you are, and if you don't know that, then it's difficult to love yourself. But then you realize that you're part of this amazing universal mechanics from the infinitely small to the infinitely big, then you experience yourself in a different way.
Yes, you do. Yeah, so I said at the beginning we were going to talk about secret scientific discoveries that are changing everything, and a new era of it. So we're going to now segue over to this research, this cutting-edge research, and for people who want to take a deeper dive into what we're talking about here, Sam and I, Greg Brady and I, let's go ahead and share that based on this cutting-edge research that we decided to create a masterclass together, a masterclass that empowers people in the choices they make, creating the highest vision of their self, and also manifesting the best vision of the world we can possibly imagine. And let's pull up the veil here on the name of this masterclass. So it's called Forbidden Science: Secrets of the Past, Promise of the Future. And so I know you were real excited about this project here in this. I certainly have been. You heard Greg share about the project. Why are you excited about this masterclass?
Well, it's a really important thing. There's multiple things. I've known Greg for 30 years, and I was excited to share the screen with Greg and do something together. And people have been waiting for a long time for that to happen, and I've been asking, so I'm glad we can do that. And then I was excited as well because I have done, during this isolation period, a lot of research, and I saw many important things, as I was saying, and I'm really excited to be able to share those things with the public. So that was exciting, but as well, I'm generally excited about the state of the world. I'm generally excited about the transformation that's occurring. Although it might look grim when you look at the microcosm here, actually there's remarkable things that are occurring, and there's remarkable openings that are occurring that are making it so transformative for humanity, and it really kind of opens the door a little bit for all this new stuff to come out, and you can see it come out at many different levels, from all kinds of different institutions, and I think this is a really good thing, although they may be birthing pains associated with it. Certainly for me, after 30 years, I feel like I'm finally having the baby. But it's I think it's a really important moment, and we're excited about it.
Yeah, me too. And I'm guessing viewers are too. It's an astounding new masterclass. This Forbidden Science masterclass. It takes a deeper dive into all of the things we're talking about. This program that we're creating here now is coming behind the creation of the masterclass. This has already been created. We've seen it. It's astounding. It's jaw-dropping. Truly. So
I think as well, that it's really a first step for people to really kind of integrate. You know, it's hard if you go to a conference, you know, in an hour and a half or 2 hours, or even if it's a few hours conference, to really, you know, be able to get the sense of all of this. And here we deliver it in little bites that are, you know, fairly easy to absorb, so that you can actually listen to a bite and then contemplate, you know, and think about it and make notes and discuss it with your friend and discuss it with your family and so on, with your kids even, and then, you know, get another bite and so on. And then if you have to go back, you know, what was that said? And then you can go back and so on. That's really, really useful. And I think it's at the end of the day, I'm convinced that if you integrate even just a few of the bites that are available from Greg or from what I've done, your life will be changed fundamentally, and that's really exciting to see.
Yes, agree with that. So there's 16 modules in this masterclass, this Forbidden Science Masterclass, and 4 live mentoring programs. Promises a lot of stuff here that we'll talk about. But let me take this opportunity to share to be sure to really come to the program page, read it carefully, so you can get a sense for all of what this masterclass includes. Because if you register in the next 24 hours, you're going to be invited to a program where we kick off this new masterclass. Greg Raven and I are going to come on live and talk with you about that program. All of those that could register in the next 24 hours. So be sure to check out the program page. Sam, do you want to just briefly talk about your modules, just kind of overviewing the modules that you created for this masterclass? What are the things that you go into?
Okay, well, some of the things I go into is, first of all, the ancient, you know, concepts of cosmology that were present and of the basis of reality that was present in earlier civilization, and then the relationship between them, and then really a brief history of modern physics in which you know, those concepts in some cases were eliminated. For instance, you know, mana and chi becoming, you know, the ether, and then the ether being removed from modern physics and so on. And so, you know, in the first few episodes, I laid it down so that you understand that that was maybe one of the biggest problems that occurred in earlier physics. The rest was really good, but it kept on changing names. For instance, it went from ether to what we discover now is space-time, right? So, and it was brought into very complex, you know, modeling of mathematics, and it kind of lost its physical attributes, which sent us kind of on a path that, in which we ended up kind of at the dead end. And now, by realizing that this quantum field of fluctuation that was still in the equation, just called a different way, now quantum field equations, or you know, quantum fluctuations, or zero point energy, so that this was actually, you know, the good old ether, you know, but expressed in a formal way differently. And so then I started to talk about the mechanics of this field of these vacuum fluctuations and how they cohere in islands, right? And so you have like a Bose and a Fermi phase and all this, and I described how the thermodynamics of such a thing, you know, produce angular momentum and spin, and then you start to understand the mechanics of this thing, and you go, oh my God, it's pretty straightforward mechanics, right? And you start to realize, oh, the forces is just the function of these mechanics and how they relate with each other. And now you're starting to understand the world around you in a completely different way. And in every
episode, I try at the end of the episode to give you something to contemplate, a takeaway from the episode, so that you can think about it or experience it in your own body, because you're made out of all that stuff I'm discussing. It's not outside yourself only. And so, and then eventually I get to that part where I discuss ancient civilization, monuments, and all kinds of things that were left in the later episode on our planet, and the evidence that supports that there is probably billions of planets in even our galaxy alone that could support life, because we're having a hard time finding stars without planets at this point. Most of stars have planets, and many are in the correct golden knot region to support life. And then, you know, that so that extraterrestrial life might have been present a very long time ago, and that they might have found the Earth a very long time ago, and that many traditions around the world support that view. Even, and you know, Greg did a great job about talking about that. I don't go into it as much, but even that the human genome and was engineered in such a way to produce, you know, the Homo sapiens sapien and so on, and how that is actually inside traditions that we find around the world. And so there is that, and then eventually I get into, well, what does this hold for our future, right? What kind of technology comes out of that? You know, what does our future look like with a unified view of physics, with a unified view of science in general, not just physics, but, you know, biology, chemistry, you know, consciousness study, archaeology, and everything. So it really shows a map, you know, again, the user's guide to the universe. Where does that lead us? What is our future with this understanding, and how remarkable that future looks like, and the amazing opportunity we have to manifest that for ourselves in this life, you know, and for the generations to come.
Yeah, let me share too, without giving away the whole part of the masterclass. At the end, Greg and Nassim do a module together that's astonishing, and the archaeological evidence even that they take a look at. At the very, very end of the module is pretty astounding.
Now let's take a look at Greg's modules. Module 1 is actually with Greg and Nassim Harriman together. It's called Cosmology Matters. This discusses the breakthrough discoveries in physics and biology. Module 2, Your Story is Your Life. Module 3, We Are the Unified Field. Module 4, Fractal Space and Fractal Time. Module 5, We Are the Technology We've Been Waiting for. Module 6, Awakening Deep Intuition. Module 7, Forbidden Biology. And Module 8, Forbidden Cosmology. Now, let's review all of what you get with Forbidden Science when you register. 7 video modules with Greg Ray. 7 video modules with Nassim Harriman. 2 video modules with Greg and Nassim together. The first module, Module 1, and the last module, Module 16. For the English version, 16 MP3 audios of the video modules. Also for the English version, 2 group mentoring sessions, and exclusive membership in our private Facebook community and Conscious Social Network. And as you can see, you get a nice discount on this program during our campaign. When you buy Forbidden Science as part of Humanity Stream Plus, you unlock hundreds of other programs that come with it. This is actually only a small sampling. And with Humanity Stream Plus, you gain access to all these other things as well. As you can see, you have two options when you purchase it. Forbidden Science is a standalone program with a nice discount. And Forbidden Science is part of Humanities Stream Plus, and you get hundreds of other programs for only a little more. Be sure to choose the option that works best for you.
Okay, so here as we wrap up this program, Nassim, let me just invite you to bring in any closing remarks, any invitations that you want to extend to our viewers.
Well, if I was to hope for an outcome from you taking that class, I would hope that there is certain pieces that stay with you for the rest of your life. And one of those pieces, and I think I can talk for Greg and for us, is that you are a remarkable being, that you have an amazing capacity that might not be completely, overt to you, that might not be completely clear to you at this moment, but by understanding this principle, what Greg is saying, what I'm saying, you can discover this potential in you that is infinite in nature, that you have access to information, not only from the outside in, but from the inside out. And that by learning these simple principles and by applying them in your life, meaning by continuing to research these, and we give you all the resources so that you can research it, you can actually transform and transcend many of the trauma you've experienced in your life, and we've all had those, many of the difficulties you might encounter and so on, and see an amazing potential for humanity, which is critical at this time, because there's a lot of people discouraged, and for good reason. However, there's an incredible potential that's developing at the same time. That's what we have to keep our eyes on.
Yes, we do, and that'll be the last word. And let me share, I'm going to be coming back to you live here in just a moment. So hang around. Any questions or comments that you have, I'm going to get to those. And I also want to share just on behalf of Nassim, Harriman, Greg, and myself, we look forward to being with all of you that decided to go through this new Forbidden Science Masterclass. Really looking forward to it, getting started here just around the corner. Thank you for joining us here today, and we look forward to being with you real soon.
Am scris toate aceste poeme din dorința de a transmite umanității un mesaj. Este timpul să ne trezim, să creăm o nouă metodă de investigație a realității plasmatice și fizice, punând la un loc toate științele exacte, științele aplicate, științele sociologice, sociale, punând la un loc etica și viziunea asupra vieții. Numai astfel, înarmați cu o metodă integrativă, vom putea cunoaște realitatea, adevărul, care se află în câmpul unificat. Iar câmpul unificat, câmpul conștiinței, suntem chiar noi, pentru că unicosul sunt eu. Sonetele profetice asta ne dezvăluie, acest secret și faptul că unicosul e Dumnezeu. Deci unicosul se află în fiecare dintre noi. În momentul în care înțelegem acest adevăr, vom putea manifesta orice ne dorim și este de bine, pentru că suntem scânteie divină. Conștiința noastră, sufletul nostru, cea de-a doua conștiință, proiectează prin lumină, materializând ceea ce ne dorim, prin intenție, prin dorință din suflet. Vă iubesc, la revedere, noapte bună, să auzim de bine. Deci, universul este asemenea unei holograme, iar noi, fiind fractal holografic, reprezentăm universul. Avem tot ce există în univers în interiorul nostru. Suntem un micro-univers. Un fractal toroidal. Uitați aici. Acesta este fractalul toroidal, care este omul și universul.